What's up? What's up? What's up? Today we're going to be talking about parent trauma and how it not only affect the parents but the kids as well. And a lot of times when the situation that we are talking about, we're not talking about like small kids, kids in elementary school or maybe kids in middle school. We talking about grown kids. And oftentimes, if you allow your grown kids to control you, they're going to control you. And the most important thing is, like I tell my kids, as long as you're respectful, you can live with me as long as you want to, as long as you're respectful. And then two, I tell my kids, there's rules everywhere. If you work for a corporate, I tell my kids, there's rules everywhere. If you work for a corporate, if you have a corporate job and that job tells you that you have to wear a red shirt every day at work, if you want to be employed at that particular company, you're going to wear a red shirt every day because you are benefiting from wearing a red shirt. So likewise, when your kids are grown and even teenagers, boundaries are put in place to protect them. Rules are put in place to protect them. And oftentimes when kids get a certain age, they feel like I'm grown. I don't have to come in the house at a certain time, or I'm grown. I should be able to do A, B, C, and D. And what I tell my kids, grown kids pay bills. If you're grown, you need to pay bills. If you're grown, you need to go out and get your own place. And by you doing that, you can set the rules, the guidelines, and the boundaries in your house however you want to. And oftentimes, too, like how I grew up, I've been on my own since I was 15. I tell my kids all the time, y'all didn't have to go through some of the things that we went through. And not one time did I make an excuse for my mom leaving when I was 15. I didn't meet my dad until I was 17. So I didn't make no excuse where my dad did this or my mom did this. And not one time did I ask them why they leave. I never asked my dad why he left my mom. Never asked my mom why did she decide to move back to her hometown. I just figured it out. And I look at how I was when I was my kid's age. I was far more advanced and far more mature and far more stable than they was. Me and my wife, we bought our first house when we was 23, got married at the age of 21. So I didn't make no excuses. I just figured it out. So when you want to be grown, you just have to figure it out. Grown people pay bills. Grown people live on their own. So a lot of times when you are a parent and you allow your kids to control you or run the house, what happens when they get older and then they start dating male or female, and then you invested, not saying you're not supposed to invest in your kids, but you have surrounded your life around them. You allowed them to control you. You allowed them to dictate your household. So you ran your household around your kids, and now they got grown. They done got a life of their own. They done moved out and they left you, and you still trying to figure out who you are. Not telling no one to kick their kids out. That's not what it's about. But you have to set boundaries. And when you set boundaries, if them kids go outside of the boundaries, then it has to be a conversation or something has to be addressed. I can't speak for nobody else. I know like my grandma to this day, my grandma is 97 years old. She still have some of her kids staying with her, some of my uncles. You know what I'm saying? And God forbid. But how does that happen? A lot of times that happen when we make excuses for our kids, when we don't hold our kids accountable.
Right. And I think that a lot of times people get so offended because they think about their child or their position as a parent, but your child is 2 years old.
Right.
You can't even relate to what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can't relate to what we're talking about. Position as a parent, but your child is 2 years old.
Right.
You can't even relate to what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can't relate to what we're talking about unless you experienced it. And then it's so many people that say, oh, well, you shouldn't have been teenage parents. Well, how do you address the doctors and the lawyers that have been put in these situations where they had to release their children?
Right.
You understand? So, There is no book that tells us how to be a perfect parent. I mean, the word of God does tell us to train up a child, and when that child is old, it will not depart, but it does not talk about what may happen in between.
Right. So that's why you don't, it has to be like my wife just said, there's no book on how to be a parent, there's no book on how to be a child. But when you allow your child to control your household because you in fear, well, what if they go out and do this, or what if they go out and do that? You got to trust God when it comes to your kids. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We can't be with our kids 24/7, but you have to entrust what you instilled in them. Yeah, what you instilled in them, that when adversity hit, when trials and tribulations hit, they'll remember what you put into them. But I'd be doggone if I'm gonna pay all the bills in my house and I'm gonna walk on eggshell because I'm afraid that if I chastise my kids, or if I be firm with them, they gonna run away. But if that's on you. Yeah. All I can do is trust what I instilled in you. All I can do is trust what I put in you. I could have used, like, my mom leaving at 15, not me. I could have used that as an excuse, but that wasn't no excuse. Yeah. I told myself, okay, I'm going to be better than my dad was. And like I said, I didn't even know him at the time, but I said, whenever I do have kids, I'm going to make sure I be better than that. That was my motivation. Not at the time, but I said, whenever I do have kids, I'm going to make sure I be better than that. That was my motivation, not using that as a crutch to say, well, my mom left me, or my dad left my mom. I don't know my dad, so let me act out. Let me use it as an excuse to be sorry. And a lot of times, kids will use certain situations to be sorry, and some adults too. You know what I'm saying? I can't use what I went through to use that as an excuse for me to be sorry, use that as an excuse for me to not do what I know to do. Right. And a lot of times people allow what they went through in life to be a crutch for them not to elevate in life. One thing about it, we all have a sad story. Everybody have a sad story. Everybody been through something. Others may been through things worse than others, but we all been through some. So are you going to allow that story to keep you in the pit? Are you going to allow what you went through to keep you living average, or to keep you in a place called stuck? Or are you going to use that situation to motivate you to say, look, I come from nothing. Yeah. I come from the project, so I come from the hood. I'm going to use that as motivation to not allow my kids to live how I live. I can never recall going on a vacation with my mom, but I'm not holding that against her, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know how her mom raised her. I don't know how her dad raised her. So I didn't use that as, oh, well, mom, why did you do this? And one thing I did, her mom raised her. I don't know how her dad raised her. So I didn't use that as, oh, well, mom, why did you do this? And one thing I did up until my mom passed, I always honored her. Amen. Never disrespected my mom. Always made sure I honored her. Always made sure honored her. Amen. Never disrespected my mom. Always made sure I honored her. Always made sure I told her how much I love and appreciate her. Because one thing I did know, when I was living with her, she did her best. Anytime she would get extra money, she would always go over and above to bless me. So I wasn't holding that against her, because I don't know what her upbringing was like. I don't know her experience with her mom or her experience with her dad. So instead of me being bitter, I said, I'm going to be better. I'm not going to hold that against you, because I don't know what you was battling as an adult. And now when me and my wife, I look at it as some of the things that we went through. My kids, they never had a clue. Never. They didn't, and that's how it's supposed to be. They don't supposed to know what we go through. So I didn't know what my mom was going through personally, raising two kids by herself. I don't know what she was going through. So she had to do what she thought was best for her. Right. And even if she wanted me to go to Savannah with her, I wasn't going to go. So, it was no chance for me going either way. If she said, baby, I want you to come down here with me, it wasn't going to be no chance I was going, because as long as I could remember, I was always able to do whatever I wanted to do. I was raised up with no rules. My mom let me do whatever I wanted to do. It was like nothing. You know what I'm saying? I started clubbing when I was in the 6th grade. I was going to the club when I was in the 6th grade, going to the strip club in middle school. I never had no rules. But even in that, I didn't abuse it, you know what I'm saying? Because I always honored my mom. I always valued her. And I always gave her the utmost respect. Right. Woo. Well, y'all, we tuning in on Facebook. So Facebook, if y'all see us looking down, it's because we... Right. Woo.
Well, y'all, we tuning in on Facebook. So Facebook, if y'all see us looking down, it's because we wanted to invite our Facebook friends to our TikTok live. So if y'all see us looking down, that means we're looking down at the it's because we wanted to invite our Facebook friends to our TikTok live. So if y'all see us looking down, that means we're looking down at the TikTok screen, talk live. So if y'all see us looking down, that means we're looking down at the TikTok screen. Hey, cuz you're right.
So we got to make sure that
Right.
that and this word trauma, right? This word trauma been introduced. I mean, I've been hearing it more now than ever, and I'm not excusing what people go through because some people have went through some horrible,
That's why we got this live
went
now.
through some horrible situations. But because you got discipline, because you did something now, and you got punished, or you got a whipping, or you got a spanking, now you want to call it trauma. You got discipline. No, if you wouldn't have did what you did, you wouldn't have got in trouble. And how I grew up, man, these kids, they it couldn't compare. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these kids, not saying all, but a lot of these kids, they are soft. They couldn't survive how we grew up. I was telling my wife the other day, I was in middle school. My mom would go out of town for weeks at a time. And me and my brother, we there. I'm in middle school. You know, so I remember my mom was out of town. I was in middle school. I got the chicken pox. My mom was out of town. I caught the chicken pox. I had to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So I would not hold that against her. Because like I said, me being grown and me knowing some of the things that my wife and I experienced as parents, you know, so I don't know what my mom was going through. That she did what she thought was best for her. Right. And I respect that, because one thing I know, my mom loved me. You know what I'm saying? When we was together, when I was staying with her, she always showed me genuine love. And one thing that I told my wife that we do with our kids that I didn't have, like when if my mom cooked something when I was growing up that I didn't eat, like my mom used to cook liver and those green peas. I hated it. Sweet peas. I went to sleep for dinner. It wasn't no second option. It wasn't like, no, if you don't like this, then you get another option. But with my kids, if one want Taco Bell, or one want Chick-fil-A, or one want McDonald's, you know what I'm saying? We will go to all those different places for them. You know what I'm saying? And that's our fault. Yeah. I don't remember growing up, you going somewhere getting a combo. You go, you get a hamburger. You'll be lucky to get the fries and a cup of water. So I told my kids, y'all don't understand it. And then too, like me and my brother was 3 years older than me. So until I was able to do for myself, like when I was in 9th grade, I had to hustle, I had to gamble, and able to buy my school clothes. Like my brother would wear something to school on Friday, I wear it Monday, or I wear it the following week. So that's how I grew up. Didn't grow up, and I grew up kind of poor, but I didn't know it was poor, because money is the least. You know what I'm saying? That I grew up, my mom showing me love, me and my brother, showing each other love. So that was wealth to me. But these kids nowadays, my kids don't know what it's like to only have one pair of shoes. These kids got 20, 30 pair of shoes. I had one pair of shoes. One. And like I said, I remember, I wanted a starter coat so bad, but my mom couldn't afford it. I wanted some regular red All-Stars so bad. My mom bought me the red All-Stars with a bulldog on it. But that's all she could afford. She did her best. And her best was good enough to me. It's the small thing that she used to do. Every time she'd come home from work, I remember she would always bring us like Skittles and Starburst. That's something that I remember. It's the small things. It's never the big things that you're going to remember. It's the small thing. It's the genuine love that she showed me, that I appreciate.
I'm going to tell you, when you talk about parent trauma, you got to talk about some of the things that you went through to make sure that these kids never experience what you went through. One thing about it, my husband and I made some decisions to co-parent. We made a decision to do it together, and it was not easy, because at the time we were still in decisions to co-parent. We made a decision to do it together, and it was not easy, because at the time we were still in the streets, still in the world, and we both had our own struggles outside of our relationship. At the time we were still in the streets, still in the world, and we both had our own struggles outside of our relationship. We were fully in the world, and we both had our own struggles outside of our relationship. We were fully committed to nothing but our own struggles outside of our relationship. We were fully committed to nothing, but at the time we only had 2 kids, and that was Queen and Quinice. We was fully committed to making sure that they were okay. And I think that during that time, that was when we were the worst, if that makes sense, when we were staying together for them. And when I talk about parent trauma, I talk about betrayal. When you a teenage mother, you already go against the grain and not take the easy way out, only to be spit in the face. How many know that is traumatizing? It's traumatizing to have a baby with no epidural. You know what I'm saying? And these nurses being mean to you and telling you, oh, you laid down to have it, so you better do this and that. And I feel like a lot of times there's this stigma on teenage mothers, but if you were able to give life, that's a blessing. I don't care what age you was. It was unfortunate that I was a teenage mother. It was unfortunate that he was a teenage dad. But guess what? It was fortunate that we knew enough to trust God. It was fortunate that we knew enough not to be a statistic. Like I tell people all the time, I don't have nothing against nobody who's on any type of government assistance. But truth be told, I had so many family members that kept telling me, you're going to be just like your mama with a house full of kids and on welfare. By the time Quintavious was 10 months old, I was off welfare. He's 27. Never had to get welfare again. And I thank God for that. And the reason why I'm thanking God for that is because I knew I had to grind and I had to hustle. It was wrong for me to turn to the streets. But all I heard in my mind was them saying what I would become. And I had to make sure that was not the narrative. And then another part of the trauma is being molested. Being molested before I even started being sexually active with men. I think that was a trigger that opened up the door for being promiscuous, opened up the door for looking in. I think that was a trigger that opened up the door for being promiscuous, opening up the door for looking for love in all the wrong places, opening up the door for doing certain things. So when I opened that door, I think those were the things that kind of gave the enemy open access. But let me tell y'all something. During that time, I thought like the world owed me something because my mom was dead. I was wrong. So with that being said, I raised my children according to how my mom raised me. But just recently, I had to realize I only had 9 years with my mommy. So I only mimicked what I knew. I knew my mom was firm. My mama didn't play, and I didn't play the radio, and I still don't play the radio with my children. Have I eased up a little? Yeah, because when you know better, you do better. But I'm not gonna let no child manipulate me. I'm not gonna reward you for negative behavior. I'm going to call you out. I don't care how old you are because I'm responsible for you. As parents, what I learned a long time ago is that you're supposed to be a good steward over your child. In other words, I put too much in you. Your daddy put too much in you for you to walk around here and be a bum. It's not going to happen. You're not going to blame us because you decide to make the wrong decision. You're not going to say, oh, I would traumatize you a lie because you had a good life before Christ. And you had an even better life after Christ.
Right. And then too, with these kids, you know, sometimes if you have multiple kids like we do, we have 7. Like the older kids, like we was teenagers with them, so we was learning as we went. So the younger kids.
Let me make sure is your Wi-Fi on? Because they saying it's lag.
We had a lot of money because we was in the streets, we was selling drugs, so they didn't want for nothing. But then when we made that transition, we went broke. We didn't have anything. So it was a period we was trying to figure it out. So once we figured it out, now we in a way better situation financially than we ever been. So
but even then, baby, they still didn't know.
Yeah, they still didn't know. But now the younger kids, they may look at it, well, they have this and they have this. Yeah, but we wasn't where we wasn't the people we are now, and we didn't have what we have now. So you should be happy that your siblings has it better than you. So a lot of times, so if you have older kids and you have younger kids, don't allow your older kids to make you feel some type of way if the younger kids have it a little bit better than what they had, because that's how life is. You get what I'm saying? It's supposed to be like that because you have evolved as a person. You're not the same person you was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We had our kids, we was teenagers. So we evolved as parents. You get what I'm saying? Like my wife just said, she didn't get nothing but 9 years with her mom. So how would you know how to be a mom if you only had 9 years with your mom? So you're trying to figure it out. So a lot of times your kids, sometimes they'll resent us because maybe like early on with our oldest two, maybe the oldest four, we was a whole lot stricter than we are now because we had to learn, okay, being that strict in this area, that's not effective. It's not working. So let us loosen up. Don't get too loose, but let us loosen up. Something we had to learn as we go. There's no such thing as a book for parents. So we are learning. So yes, were we wrong for being so strict early on? Yes, but we didn't know any better because we was like that because how we grew up. We didn't want our kids to mimic what we did. So a lot of areas we were super strict. But one thing about it, how can you have all your kids, one thing about all your kids under the same roof, but all of them are different. They are different individuals, and some of them get it, and some of them don't. The ones that don't get it right now, it's okay. We continuously pray for them, and that's what we do with our oldest. You know, all I can do is pray for you because one thing about it, you're not going to disrespect me or disrespect my wife and think you're going to come out. It don't work that way. I don't care who you are. You're not going to be disrespectful. And when we know we did right by you, when we know we did our best, when we know we sacrificed, because even when we was going through it, they didn't know it. They never knew. Because one thing about, we have meetings on the regular with our kids. So we was like, how do y'all feel about what we going through? This was years ago.
Talk about that time.
And they was like, well, we didn't know that we was going through anything. It was like in 2008, I think, is when we had made the transition from the street life into 2002 to living right. So I went out and got a job. My first job making $10 an hour. I'm like, man, how somebody supposed to survive off this? $10 an hour. That's what I was making. But I knew I didn't want that lifestyle because our trap house had got busted. I was facing 15 years. And I said, God, if you get me out of this without having to go to jail, I promise I will never sell drugs again. And I held fast to that. I was able to got locked up one time when I was in high school for drugs. So I was able to get the First Offenders Act twice. That's nothing but the grace of God. Right. So I was making $10 on this job, and then I, worked the job from starting like 2002 up until like 2008. So in 2008, the location that I was, rewind that, we was having Bible study in our house. And my wife, she gave me a word from God. She said, God told me to tell you that this job is about to close down and they're going to offer you the supervisor position at the new location. And she said, God said, don't go. So, I went to work the next day. They called me and they was like, we're closing down, but we want you to come to the next. I was making $10 an hour, but I worked my way up and I became the receiving supervisor. So I know what God just said, but when they asked me that, do I want to come? God told me no, but I said yes. And then I remember I was outside walking or outside on a forklift or something. God said, but what did I say? And I was just thinking, man, we finally just got back to living, a decent life. So what am I supposed to do? So I didn't even know who was going to start pastoring the church, but God is an all-knowing God. So he told me, he was like, look, this season, I got to teach you to solely depend on me. And a lot of times we used to depending on human resources instead of depending on the source, which is God, which is Jesus Christ. So I went 5 years without working. 5 years. I'm talking about 5 years. I'm talking about without working nowhere. But God sustained us. In that season, he taught me how to pray. In that season, he taught me how to solely depend on him. In that season, he taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to be connected to him, how to be in tune with him. And he taught me how to listen. He taught me how to listen. So when he speak to me, I know, God, this is you.
Yes.
So I was able to learn how to identify his voice, spending time with him. So in that season, it was rough. But they didn't know it because their quality of life didn't change. And a lot of times our kids, they don't know the sacrifices that we make to provide for them. And I'm not saying that, and I know as parents, we're supposed to provide, but a lot of things that we do as parents, we go over and beyond for our kids. We make sure that they have the best. We don't have to buy them name brand clothes. They just have to have clothes, name brand shoes, but they just have to have shoes. But we wanted to make sure that we gave our kids something that we didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
You know, taking them out of town, letting them experience different things that we never experienced. So a lot of times we put ourselves in the bind, not that they asked for it, but we want to make sure that they had. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they didn't understand that. And it's not supposed to understand, you know, going to work when you don't feel good, going to a job where you have to put up with people talking to you in any kind of way. And as a man, you go into a job, right? And you got to ask your supervisor. If I want to go on a field trip with my kids, you got to ask another man, is it okay to spend time with my kids? That didn't sit right. That never sat right with me. You know what I'm saying? I got to ask another man if it's okay for me to go on a field trip and spend time with my kids. Or you going somewhere, they talk to you in any kind of way because they know you need this job. This is how you provide for your family. So a lot of things that I dealt with, they won't even understand, but I dealt with it because I wanted to provide for them. I didn't want them to go without.
And leadership is putting up and taking the lead, taking the leadership role. But like I was saying, when I was stuck in my own trauma, my mom was a teenage mom, and you have all these people commenting on the video is like 800,000 now on my page. So many different shares, over 40,000 people shared it on Facebook, 1.2 million, 3 million now views. And you have so many people that are saying, you know, oh, she sound bitter. Oh, she sound toxic. I can't even get offended by that because I know for myself, when you say things like they didn't ask to be here. And then I had one lady that come in and said she gave her children bare minimum. Ma'am, how did you get that from a 3-minute video?
Right.
The people that know me know that I already had a mother instinct. I always loved children anyway. And that's why when I found out I was pregnant, wasn't nobody gonna convince me to have an abortion. Nobody. My first baby, like, I didn't care what was going on. And then another thing is, people will say, well, you laid down and had the baby, but then they'll say they pro-choice, they pro-life. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Everybody gets tired. Everybody. Sometimes your children will get mad at you for cutting them off, but they handed you the chainsaw. They handed you the scissors. You gave them multiple times to make better decisions. Listen, you can raise a child in a 2-parent home. You can give them all the love in the world, but if you do not have their influence, you do not have them. If a blunt have your influence, that blunt gonna direct you. That blunt gonna control you. That blunt gonna make you do what it wants you to do. Mm-hmm. And that's just the bottom line. We got to call this stuff what it is. You can have a 2-parent home that waited till they were got married to have sex, whatever. At the end of the day, you can only offer your children the best. So then the person said, well, you were 14. How could you give them the best? Hey, I was 9 years old when my mama died, but my sisters and brothers always had a Christmas because I went to the church sales to make sure I could buy brand new toys for them to have to open. That's something that I did as a 9-year-old. So I knew what to do. But one thing I offered them was what I did not have: structure and discipline. Mm-hmm. I already knew what I wasn't going to take off a kid. I watched my grandmother raise my uncle, God bless his soul, but he didn't do what he was supposed to do out of life because she handicapped him. I knew I wasn't raising no lazy sons. I knew I wasn't going to be the type of mother that'll let my sons bring all type of different girls to my house. I already knew because I had to make decisions based off of what I had came from. Yeah. And in order to break the cycle, you have to identify that the cycle exists. I knew that I came from a teenage mother. I didn't want my girls being caught up and being teenage mothers. So guess what I did? I started teaching them about inappropriate touching at the age of 2. And that was a part of my own trauma. To this day, my husband would tell y'all, me and him got into it because Quinicia was sitting in his lap, and I was like, and she was a baby. And I was like, don't let her sit in your lap. And he was like, look, I don't know what you got going on, but this is my daughter. She gonna sit in my lap. But to this day, no other man, they have never been able to sit in his lap. And because of my past trauma, I had to get used to them sitting in their dad's lap, kissing their dad, like stuff that I had no idea. I could not relate to any of that. But he had to check me and say, look, whatever you got going on, that ain't got nothing to do with what I have to do with my girls and how I want them to be raised. I want them to know that their dad loves them affectionately. I had never experienced that. So guess what I had to do? I had to back down. I had to back down and let him be dad. But guess what? I still don't let them sit in nobody lap. I don't care who it is. My daddy, pops. I don't care who it is. You ain't sitting in your brother lap. Put them down. That's something my mama taught me. And it stuck with me. And another thing is, when you say you gave your best, my video is not referring to the people that left their children behind, did what they wanted to do, did not have anything, did not have any part in raising them. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that literally got out the mud and the blood of Jesus. That's the only way you survive. So when I say you survive, you lived a good life. And when we left the streets, you lived an even better life. So when I talk about my best, I'm talking about my best moving forward and making sure you ate when I couldn't eat, when I didn't have no shoes, brand new shoes. When I was getting food stamps, my baby was a little baby. I would sell them stamps just to make sure he had diapers. Whatever I had to do, I did it. So that's what I'm talking about, the best. Now, when you talk about the better, I'm talking about realizing the streets had nothing to offer me, went broke, stayed committed to my husband. We got married, changed our life, changed our address, and the rest is God's story. The rest is history. So you doggone right, I'm going to check my kids where they stand. I'm going to let them know you're not going to come up in here and run my house. You're not going to come in here and ruin my life. I'm not going to let fear control me. I'm going to trust God with you because God trusted me with you. Now I got to give you back to him and be waiting to see the transformation that comes when you come to the end of yourself and you stop letting stop letting your dirty tennis shoe friends take control over your life so that you can walk into your destiny and you can fulfill the call that you are running from. Yeah. Checkmate.
And that's what it is, because if you allow your kids to control you, that's what they're going to do. It don't mean you don't love them. But right. If you grown people live on their own. Grown people pay bills. I'll be doggone if I pay all the bills and you're going to do whatever you want to do. You come in when you want to come in, leave out the house when you want to leave out the house, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't work that way. Because if you respect the rules at your job, because you value your job, it's going to be the same thing if you live in my house. If you want to live here, you're going to respect the rules here. If Chick-fil-A tell you to be to work at 6 o'clock, if you want to work here and to tuck your shirt in your pants, you're going to do that, or you're going to be unemployed. Likewise, if you want to stay with me, because we don't put out when our kids turn 18, you got to go. No, it's not like that. I tell my kids, you can live with me as long as you want to.
And we do have some stipulations, though.
But as long as you're respectful. As long as you're respectful, they don't give me a coin. Save your money.
Keep a good credit score.
Keep a good credit score. But then my thing is, people are like, well, I'm not. Well, if you don't put your kids out, your grown kids out, and allow them to control your life, and then when they meet somebody and then they leave you high and dry, you don't even know who you are. You at home lonely because you built your life around them. One thing about it, man, your kids gonna get old and they're gonna move out.
Yeah.
But when you allowed your kids to control you, if you're a single mom or a single dad, you didn't date nobody because you know what I'm saying? Not saying you don't supposed to consider what your kids think, but if your kids control your dating life, if they control what you do, now they done found them somebody, they done moved out, and you still trying to find out who you are. You are lonely, you depressed because now you feel betrayed. Well, why did you let it get to that point? Look, I love you with everything in me, but you can't stay here no more. The only thing I can offer you is prayer. And one thing about, I don't care who you are. Don't nobody want to be used by nobody. Your kids only call you when they need something. What type of relationship is that? How would you feel if they only call you when they need something? They'll never call you to check on you. And when they get some money, they never say, not that you asked for anything, let me take my mom out. Well, let me take my dad out. You know, it's Mother's Day. Let me get my mom something nice for Mother's Day because I remember all the sacrifices she did for me. I remember she always gave me her best. And then Mother's Day come, they don't celebrate you. Father's Day come, they don't celebrate you. But every time they need you, they ring your phone off the hook. That got to come to an end, because if you allow them to continually do that, they're going to continuously do that. So you got to put some boundaries in place. Look, you can't always call me when you need something. I'm responsible for my household. I'm not going to take care of my household and your household too. And you and your household, you doing whatever you want to do. How fair is it when you get your money, you go do whatever you want to do with your money, but then when your bills due, you call me because it's a need? It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to figure it out, just like I had to figure it out.
Yeah. So, pretty much. But the reason why they don't see it as our best is because they are entitled.
Right.
And when you are entitled, you look at it not as your parents' best. You feel like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You supposed to listen. I ain't supposed to do nothing but provide a roof, which is shelter. That's one. Make sure that you're not abused. Make sure you're in good health, and make sure you have clothes. Ain't nobody said I had to put you in designer. None of that stuff. Now me, that's one of the things I asked God. I said, look, please, Lord, I'm leaving these streets alone, but I need you to make sure that I can keep my kids how I kept them. And he honored that. But one thing God showed me how to do is how to put more value in them than I did the material clothes that I put them on. So that was something that was a part of my transition. That was something that I learned. None of us are perfect parents. We try to be. And when you try to be, that is your best. And your best is good enough.
Right.
And I had a person that takes on one of my, that commented, and she was like, well, what do you do when your mom take all your money and take all your stuff? And I'm saying to myself, baby, it's unfortunate that you went through that. But that's not my children's story. They get to keep their check. They get to keep their money. And we still, let's talk about it. We still buy their clothes. We still buy their shoes. We still take care of them. And two of our kids are six-figure bosses. Like, and they still.
me and Jerry just talking today. And I said, Jerry, when the last time you bought a pair of shoes? He couldn't even remember. He said, y'all bought all my shoes.
Has he ever bought a pair?
Yeah. But he bought a pair of shoes from me. He bought really good to us, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but he was like,
I'm saying, has he ever bought himself a pair of shoes?
Yeah, he has. And he was like, he couldn't remember, because one thing about it, you know, when you're a family do for each other. Family look out for each other. Any relationship, if one person always giving, that one person gonna get drained. But when you're a family, you have each other back. It's like you trying to not. It's not no competition, but like I tell people all the time, if you good to me, I'll be even better to you. That's just how it is. Anybody that's good to me, I guarantee you, I'm even better to them. Because don't nobody want no one-sided relationship when it's always I'm doing all the giving and you doing all the taking. But when it's my time, like my homeboy Dayton said, he was like, I got your back, but remember, I got one too. And it's the same thing. Okay, I got your back, but remember, I have a back too. And a lot of times people, if you continue to allow them to take from you, they're going to take a relationship, a friendship, a family. That's a covenant. And in a covenant, one person is not doing all the giving.
It's
because
like
that person going to be drained.
One thing about us, our circle is very intimate, but we fight over who going to bless who. We stay turning tables. And that's what I think what hurt me the most is when our children act like greatness is not on the inside of them. Mm-hmm. Like, don't try to go back and duplicate a past life that we had, because you're not built for that. And you're not built to be a drug dealer. You're not built to be out here on these streets. It ain't in you.
And don't try to create a story. Like, we met a pastor a couple of days ago, and he was like, his mom and dad been still married to this day. He was older than us. He says mom and dad still married to this day. He said he never clubbed, never drank, never smoked, never been to jail. And he was like, and I told him my testimony. He was like, wow. He was like, I never been through none of the stuff that you've been through. And I said, that's your testimony. That's the blessing that you didn't have to go through it. Man, I wish, I tell people all the time, I wish my parents was how we were to our kids. I wish I had that.
Pops has said it.
I wish.
He said being in our presence, being in our home, seeing how we flow, seeing how we operate. He always talk about how blessed we are to have each other, because it's like, it's no competition in our house. It's whoever get here first, whoever get to the million first. We just one big happy family. Do we go through challenges? Yes, but we tackle those challenges together. We don't separate. But when you coming into this thing and you committing high treason, don't get mad if we throw you overboard. You cannot be on this ship if you're going to cause it to sink. You know what I'm saying? Jonah was on that ship. Guess what? They were like, you are the reason why this ship is sinking. And guess what they did? They tossed him out. Mm-hmm. And him getting tossed out of the ship got him pushed into the will of God. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to go. Listen, you ain't going to stay stuck here and have us draining us and make us feel like, oh, we did something wrong. Listen, you got to say you got trauma before the blunt.
Right.
You got to say you got trauma before the bad decision. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we cannot allow these children to manipulate us to the point where we be like, wait a minute, what did I do?
Right.
You got to admit to what you did do.
Mm-hmm.
Try your best to fix it now, because we ain't got no time machine to go back into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But you can admit to what you did, the wrong that you did, correct the wrong, make it better. But as a child, you have a responsibility too, because if you know that you have caused heartache, if you know that you have committed treason, if you know that you have made things hard for your parents, the right thing for you to do is acknowledge it and stop getting offended on my videos, because I'm not your mama.
Right.
I'm not your mama.
And then even growing up, you know what I'm saying, I was pretty good in football. I never recall my mom coming to one of my football games. You know, you look in the stands, you see everybody else's parents. And I never asked my mom. I never was mad at her about not coming. I just don't know why. You know what I'm saying? So I could have been like, oh, my mom never showed up, or my dad never showed up. Well, let me get it in the a pity party for myself. Let me get in this pit. I didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So if I didn't do that, I'd be doggone if I'm gonna let somebody else guilt me. And when I know I did my best, you know what I'm saying? I could have. And man, not one time did I ask my mom when my mom just passed April 4th. Not one time did I ask her from the time I was 15, I'm 43 now, never asked her one time, why did she leave? Never asked my dad one time, why did he leave my mom? Why didn't he come back to my life until I was 17? Never asked him.
Yeah.
Because me asking them, it wasn't going to change anything. It wasn't going to change the situation. My life turned out exactly how it was supposed to turn out.
Right.
I went through exactly what I was supposed to go through. So when I tell somebody you can overcome it, not having a dad, you can overcome, you can overcome it. But your why have to be greater than you. Your why have to be bigger than you. Why do you want to overcome it? Why do you want to become great? It has to be bigger than you. You can't use that as a crutch, because if you use that as a crutch, it's going to keep you in a place called stuck. Why did my mama leave? I can't sleep at night because I'm wondering, why did she leave? Or why did my dad leave my mom? I can't sleep at night because I'm wondering why. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to better my life. And it's not like if he tell me why, it's going to make the situation better. It's not going to change anything. So what I had to do, I had to figure it out. I had to learn how to survive. And that's what I did. Yeah. Thank God I enjoyed playing sports. So that's what got me through school. I knew if I wanted to play football, run track and play baseball, I had to make good grades. I had to go to school. So it wasn't an option saying, well, I'm not going to go to school because I don't have nobody to make me go. I went to school because I enjoy playing sports. That was my why for graduating. That was my why for going to school, because I enjoyed playing football, baseball, and track. So I know if I wanted to do them things, I had to go to school. So anybody can find any excuse on why they feel a type of way.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah.
But don't let that situation define you. Don't let that situation keep you in park.
But I one thing about it, baby, I don't think that we were too strict. I think that we gave them everything we did not have. And had we not been as strict as we were, ain't no telling what type of doors they would have opened up early on. Mm-hmm. If we didn't keep a firm hold. But one thing that I decided to do was not be in fear. I had to trust God. And, the first thing I said to God, I'm like, Lord, I don't want to bury my child. I don't want to bury any of my children. But I don't want my children to have to bury me because of one child's trauma. Mm-hmm. I don't want my children to have to bury me because I'm sitting here worried about putting my focus on one and it's stripping and sucking the life out of me. I wasn't going to volunteer. I wasn't going to volunteer for that.
Right.
But what I am going to do is continue to stand in the presence of God, not the gap. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stand in the presence of God on your behalf and know that the seed of the righteous shall be saved. Right. And continue to cover you, but I will never cover up for you. Mm-hmm. Because when I was when in the days where I lacked accountability, those were the worst days of my life. In the days where I felt like somebody owed me something, mm-hmm. those were the worst days of my life. In the days when I was looking for a pity party, those were the worst days of my life. Mm-hmm. My life started turning around when I realized I was sinking. You cannot eliminate what you do not view as a problem.
Right.
I then turned my excuse into my opportunity. My mom died when I was 9 years old. That's my opportunity to let her live on the inside of me. My mom was a young mother. My mom took care of us as a young mother. That's what I remember. So I better be exactly how she wanted me to be. When them excuses turn to my opportunity, that's why you see Pastor Tay today. That's why you see me married. I was not a woman that somebody would marry. I want a child that somebody would marry. Why? Because that's what statistics tell you what you can't do. But what my Bible tells me, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's why I'm married, happily married. Enjoy every ounce, every bit of my husband. I'm not finna let him worry, let him be sad, because I am a little stiffer than my husband is, when it comes to his kids. And you guys learned that on Marriage Mondays. One of the things that Derrick and I have went back and forth about or fell out about is our children. He may see a view, I may see straight manipulation. I don't care. You ain't gonna change my mind. You ain't gonna change. No. And we bump heads on that. So it was very hurtful for him to actually see what I was talking about. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I never wanted to turn him against any of our children, but I also wanted him to know, like, listen, man, hey, we don't have 2 feet. We have 4. We are one. If my feet are standing, your feet don't move. And it was hard for him because he was like, what do you mean? Like, I got to do this. No, you don't. God got to do this. Because if you keep stepping in, they're going to continue to operate in their toxic behavior, and it's going to continue to inflict trauma on us. Having disrespectful kids that are privileged, that you have given your last to, fed before you fed yourself, made sure they had the very best, even when you had lack, you were in lack, bills behind, mortgage behind, trees still full. Y'all ain't saying nothing to me tonight. I'm talking about real life situations, going to the school, holding your hand just so you could graduate 3 years straight, so you could be a part of a generational curse that was already broken. So when you think about everything that you have suffered as a teen parent, that's where the trauma comes. The trauma started getting pregnant. How many know getting pregnant is the easy part? But boy, that baby gonna speak after 9 months, and you gonna forever be a parent. But how long your children allow you to be that covering for them depends on them. You cannot abandon your covering, because guess what? If it's storming outside, you're gonna need that umbrella. You're gonna need it, or else you're gonna get wet. Yeah. And depending on how the wind blow, you still might get a little wet, right. But you still got your covering. You don't need to live without your covering. You don't need to leave without your covering. And you are arrogant if you think that you can live without your covering. That's why we got to wake up every day. Father God, I thank you that I need my covering. Father God, I thank you that you are ordering my steps. Father God, I thank you that your favor goes before me in every situation, opening up doors and rearranging and changing things in our lives. And what these kids have to understand, your decisions may hurt us, but they are going to affect you. Right. They may hurt us, but they are going to affect you. This is your decision. You're not going to make me feel bad because you chose to lay up with this person. You're not going to make me feel bad because you did not listen. And a lot of our children do not hate us, y'all. They hate the fact that we was right. Listen, one thing I know, if I've been to God the road before, I probably could tell you 2 or 3 ways or 4 ways to get there. In other words, I've been there. So if I could tell you 3 or 4 ways of how to get somewhere, or how to stay somewhere, or how to avoid something, you better listen to somebody that's already been there. But the problem is these kids don't understand. You was raised by some teenage parents that ain't no suckers and no busters. We know the word of God and we know the streets. So we got discernment and we got street knowledge. So when you come to us trying to pretend like you not high and we see you glassy eye, we already know what you got going on.
Right. And then too, as parents, you have to draw the line somewhere, because I remember like our oldest son, he was smoking or whatever, and we told him, look, bro, you can't, if you come to our house high again, you can't come. The respect, and if you don't establish boundaries and guidelines, they're going to run over you. And then too, a lot of times it's not that your parenting was wrong. They got their decisions making. And sometimes the friends that they hang around, their influence is stronger than yours. But you got to trust that what you instilled in them, that seed you planted in them, that word you planted in them, it's going to come up. But sometimes experience is the best teacher. We can tell our kids to do what they need to do, and we could be 100% right. But at the end of the day, they're going to choose their own path. And the path that they choose, if it's wrong, then they have to deal with that. Yeah. If it's wrong, they have to deal with it. You pray them through it. But one thing about it, do not allow them to control you because you fearful that something going to happen to them. You got to pray, because one thing about it, they're God's first. So God, I trust you with my kids. I'm not going to be in fear and allow my kids to control me. Oh, if you don't allow me to stay with you, this is what's going to happen to me. Hey, look, I trust God, because I'm not going to allow you to disrupt the floor of my house or disrupt the peace of my house because I'm somewhere afraid that something going to happen. You know, I trust God with you. You know what I'm saying? He gave you to me. So God, I trust you. I release my kids to you. You allow me, when they get grown, when they're able to fend for themselves, God, I don't raise them. I did my best. God, I trust them with you now. I release them back to you.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But don't beat yourself up and no, God, I wonder. No. God, I trust you. Pray. I'm not saying don't pray for your kids. We pray for our kids, God. They going to do A, B, C, and D. God, I trust you, God. Protect them, God. Shield them. But I'm not going to continue to allow you to disrespect me. And anytime you come around, it's to benefit you. It doesn't work that way, man, because if you allow your kids to do that, you're going to be like my grandma, 97, and still got her kids living with her. God forbid.
And one thing we have to understand is we do not have to tolerate being manipulated. And we are not going to be guilt into saying we caused your negative behavior.
Right.
Especially when we have a house full of kids that have never opened that door. Never desired to do some of the things, but they also don't hang with people that do those things.
Right. And anybody who know me, man, they know how I feel about my kids. I'm like, for real.
He'll fall out with me about it.
If I let go, you know what I'm saying, because it was the best thing. I had to. You know what I'm saying? It just was the best thing. So if I was able to let go and release it to God, anybody can do it.
Yeah,
because
part 2 coming soon.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you got to trust God. You got to trust God when it comes to them.
All right, y'all. Shout out your city and your state. What's up, Facebook? How y'all doing? Happy birthday, Pastor Brenda. Whew. Listen, y'all. The reality is the truth hurts. A lot of people said that the jar thing was just too harsh, but that's what they go in, the jar. And then they eventually go in to a trash can.
Yeah. It's an abortion. It's
an abortion
clinic. It's an abortion clinic on just about every corner. And you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah. Some of them look like houses, y'all.
Right. A lot of them look like houses.
And I'm not going to let people that have 2-year-olds tell me how to raise my grown children. Like our daughter, she just moved out. She's doing well for herself. 26 years old when she moved out. She don't know what it feels like for her parents to take her check. Because she got to keep her money. When it was time for her to get a car, she was able to do all of that. Why? Because a parent taught her everything that they didn't know. That's what I'm talking about, giving them the best. Giving them the advantage, telling them not to get nothing in their name for nobody, telling them the importance of paying bills, telling them, hey, this is your money, keep your money, but always keep at least $1,000 to $2,000 saved just in case. Those are the things that we required of them, and to be respectful. So if you left this house, you were supposed to be straight because of what we put in you.
And then too, our kids don't have that story. They credit wasn't bad at the age of 2. Some kids
We've never got any utilities.
Some kids
in their
too
name.
got bad credit. Some kids too owe $100,000 in debt at the age of 2. That's not our kids' story. Never got anything in their name. And people, that's reality, man. I growing up, I knew people who parents had bills in their name. So you start out behind the 8 ball. How you 15 years old, 13, 12, your credit already bad.
So our kids, and then they would come to us. We're gonna close with this, y'all, because we gotta go. But we're gonna come back next week. We'll keep y'all posted on the day and the time. But then they would come to us like Christmas, and they would be feeling sad, like, or if some of their friends' parents got divorced, like it affected our children, like, oh my God, such and such done broke up. They don't even realize how many times we was almost that, but we pressed and we continue to push forward, and we deny ourselves so many
Had a
times.
Georgia Power bill at 3.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to be very, very
you got
careful.
Kids, you got kids 5, got 2 timeshares in Vegas.
Baby.
5 years. How you got 2 timeshares in Vegas and you 5?
We love y'all.
Peace. You got a timeshare at 5.
Baby. Bye, y'all. We love y'all. This man said, I can't believe him, y'all.